What's up, everybody? Happy Friday. It is spring. It's beautiful out, still cold, but a beautiful day. Life is good. I got no complaints. Um, so yeah, we're 1 week in on the Tesla. Totally impressed, totally blown away by the AI, and it just really is making me feel good about where this company's going and investing in them and seeing it firsthand. And it's funny because this random text message that I sent to my friend the other morning at 6:45 in the morning. We're like going back and forth about stocks, and Tesla, and AI, and this and that. And it's like, kind of inspired this video because it made me kind of think about a few things and really kind of put some things into perspective for me, and it kind of made me really like understand why I think, we've seen this, like I've said this before, right? Like we've seen this movie twice. We're getting a third shot to see this movie again. And, why is that and quantifying it? So, my friend is 6 months younger than me, right? So we're about the same age. And it's just funny how like divergence, and then within a generation, how a couple of years even can make a huge difference. So, I'm a Gen X, right? So if we know about generations, right, let's pull this up real quick. So I'm Gen X, right? So baby boomers were kind of like everybody before them. That was like an analog life, right? There were no really computers yet. Everything was kind of analog. It was, I remember a lot of things from that era, my early life. Gen X kind of was the bridge between analog and digital, right? So we were the generation that was born in an analog world and we saw the emergence of the digital revolution, computers, the internet, all of that, cell phones, and I'll get into that in a second. And then from there, millennials were kind of already like that was just a thing. And then Gen Z and now Gen Alpha. And it's funny, when I was making this video, I never realized this, but I'm Gen X, my wife is millennial, my daughter's Gen Z, and my son's Gen Alpha. Just, whatever, right? We all think differently, but, so it's funny. So, like, I'm thinking, I'm like, all right, I was born in 79. So I'm the end of Gen X, you know, and so when I went to school, I started school in 1984. So I was 5 years old when I went to school. And I remember computers were a thing, right? So I'm 45 years old. So I have friends and family that are a little bit older than me, maybe 5 years older than me. And our vision, our view of like this crazy new era that we're living in and AI and stuff, like they have a much different take than me. Whereas me, sometimes I think I'm crazy, right? Hold on. Sometimes I feel like I'm the only person in my life that cares about this stuff at the level that I care about it. And so I wonder, like, am I crazy? Am I onto something? Does everyone just think I'm dumb? I don't know, but I see like friends and family who are like 5 years older than me have a totally different approach to it than I do. Cause I'm like, I want to dive right in. Like I bought the Tesla, got in the damn thing, and let it drive me home right from the dealership. That was it. And my friend I was talking to today was like, bro, you trusted it to do that? I'm like, yeah, bro, I don't know. Like, it is what it is. It just works, and so I think that little difference of time makes a difference, because when I started school in 1984, computers were being brought into school. But if you were 5 years older than me, you're already 10 years old. So those first 5 years of my school life, you're already 10 to 15 years old. You're thinking about other stuff. You're chasing girls around, you're chasing boys around, whatever. So whereas me, I'm like, oh wow, school's cool. I get a computer. And then I remember one of my first memories like of school was this a similar computer to this. And I signed it out from school and I got to take it home for the weekend. And it was something like this. And it came in a box and I don't know, I had this like analog screen and but it was so fascinating to me. It was so fascinating. And I remember every day in school, as time went on from kindergarten, first grade, second grade throughout, like computers evolved and they were always there, you know. And I remember, Campbell's soup labels, right? Like we would collect Campbell's soup labels and bring them to school so your school can get an Apple computer, and then and then in the early 90s, I was living in Holland and I had a family friend who worked at Apple. To this day, I don't know what she did at Apple. I have to ask my mother. But she always would get us these computers. So we had these Macintosh computers, so this is like early 90s now, 91, 92, so the computers, so they were always in my life. And I remember thinking like, wow, this Macintosh computer is so much better than this computer I have to use at school. But none of the stuff on the school computer, which was Windows, would work on or MS-DOS really at the time, would work on the Apple computer. And, and it was this huge disjointedness. And I'm going somewhere with this, so just hang with me on this. Right? Like, so the early tech was so divided and nothing worked together. Now I'm doing this on a Mac. I'm making this video on a Mac. All the Microsoft software works just fine on it. All the Google software integrates, like everything works together now. And in the beginning, we didn't have that, but I grew up in a world where I was like, all right, this stuff is cool. I can see, like, I'm comfortable with it. So I've always been kind of like into it. You know what I mean? And some of my friends and family just aren't that way, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just funny to me, like a couple of years makes a difference, right? Which is why I think I was so non-apprehensive to let the car drive me home, right? But there's more. So now, I remember in the 90s, right? So now we're going like mid 90s. I was in high school, living in England at the time. Email was kind of coming out. The internet was starting, and I remember we had like this internal email thing at school. We'd have tech class and you'd send an email to your friend. Now I'm with my friend all day and their class was after mine. So I'd send them a message. And then the next day, until I got to class, I wouldn't ask them what they sent me, right? I'd wait to see, and then I'd send them back, So that was the start of email, right? But it was this closed system. And then it kind of grew from there. And now it's the bane of my existence. I hate email, but it is what it is, right? And then, going a little further after that, like late 90s, early 2000s, I was living in Portugal. And I remember having cell phones like this, and look how like it grew, from this already to this. And this was only like 15 years. Right now, I got this in my pocket. I could call anybody. I can send a text message. Like what a transition that we saw, right? And now these things started to see like early internet, but there was still no consistency. Because 5 years later, in like 2005, now I'm living in Massachusetts. I had this BlackBerry right here, the Nextel BlackBerry with the chirp, right? Remember? And it couldn't send a text message, right? Outside of a BlackBerry. It was the weirdest thing. So this phone that I had like 5 years earlier in Portugal could easily send a text message to any other phone. But for some reason, BlackBerry couldn't figure it out, or they had their own closed system, whatever it was, so you can see like over time, there were no standards, but over time the standards developed, and so I have these memories and I have this experience trying out different techs, trying out different systems or networks or whatever it is. And that's just natural to me to try things early before they're widely adopted, and kind of bringing me to where we are today. So like where I'm saying, like, I've seen this movie twice in my life and I know how it ends. Like this is what it is, and now here I am and I'm in my 40s and I'm like, man, I got a shot here. Like I see it. Like I know what's happening here. This is the development of technology, right? We're seeing crypto, we're seeing Bitcoin, right? Disrupting finance. These networks are coming online. They don't work perfectly yet. There's a lot of volatility because it's new technology. We're seeing Tesla with the AI revolution and Grok and Chat GPT, and so over time, there will be a standard, like winner takes most, 100%. There will be a standard. And it's just picking who you think is going to win that battle and betting on them early and betting on them hard and see if you're right. You know what I mean? I told you, early 90s, Apple computer, I knew it was a better computer. It just worked better. It was easier. And now 30 years later, I'm doing this on an Apple computer. I have an Apple iPhone. I have an iPad, right? Like, so here's like, so recent examples, right? Like, so when you look at electric cars and the charging, right? It's so disjointed. But Tesla came out with the supercharger network. Everybody else relented and adopted the Tesla standard. And now you see Fords and BMWs and Chevrolets all charging at the Tesla superchargers. So there you go. Like the best network took most of the business, right? All these other Charge Americas and the EV thing, like they just don't work well. So where we are now, I think with AI, you have Chat GPT, you have Grok, you have Meta with Llama, so there's these different like large language models that are all kind of like doing their own thing, but no one's really working together, right? They're all trying to find their footing and someone's going to win. And once you try a few of them out, you start to realize some of them work better than others because I've seen this movie before. And then we look at autonomous driving, right? I started off talking about the Tesla and how it just works, man. Like I bought the thing, I got in, I typed in my address, and the damn thing drove me home. Like it just worked out of the box. And everyone's sleeping on it. And they're like, oh man, it ain't gonna work. And look at Waymo. And Waymo, you ever see a Waymo? Like it's got all these things on it and it's so expensive to build, but it's like someone's gonna win that. Like there's gonna be a winner that takes most of that business. And if it's Tesla, and I really think it will be, and they get 80% of the market share, that's a huge market, and then it grows from there with robots and stuff. So this is the early days of AI, right? Looking at crypto, there's all these different chains. You got Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, Solana, and they all like none of the wallets work together. You got a Phantom wallet, you got a Ledger wallet, you got a MetaMask wallet, a Soulflare. Try to trade Bitcoin for Solana. I'm trying to figure out how to do that right now without going to a centralized exchange. And it's tough, right? But there's solutions coming out. So again, 30 million cryptos, like winner's going to take most. And right now there's a few that are winning, right? So you can see like I've seen this movie before. So I don't think I'm crazy. I think my friends and some of my family probably do because I don't shut up about this stuff. But I'm like, man, like I really think like everything I've ever learned, all my experiences with technology, computers, the internet, cell phones, everything I learned in my life, I'm at this moment now where I'm like, yo, I think it's happening again. I think here's an opportunity, and that's it. So I'm in, I might be wrong. I might be right. I don't know. But I've seen this movie before a couple of times in my life. And I feel like, yo, this is something. There's something here, right? And just pick a few that you think are going to win and just go hard and bet. Just that's it. And that's my strategy. And I try out the tech. I use it all. I try the competitors. I'm very familiar with all of them, and I've seen this movie before, and I just showed you a couple different examples, right? Over the years, how like all these different standards, eventually one will win, and there's a need for the tech. It's not some like fly by night thing. AI is transformative to the future of humanity, right? Crypto and Bitcoin is disrupting traditional financial systems. Like that's it. It's happening, whether you like it or not. I just sent Solana to a guy on my team in the Philippines, literally held his cell phone up to the computer screen, put his QR code on my screen, through his phone, through his webcam, on my computer screen with his wallet QR code. I pulled out my phone, scanned his wallet code in my wallet app, and I sent him some Solana on the other side of the world. It got there in less than a minute and cost 3 cents. And we scanned it with cell phones through a computer screen. Like that is the disruption of traditional finance, guys. And it's mind blowing when I see it in action. I've done it so many times, but it still blows my mind. So that's where I'm at. So this text message that I sent to my boy the other day at 6:45 in the morning took me down this rabbit hole. It made me realize, man, like innately I understand something. And now I can kind of like articulate it and quantify it. And I'm like, dude, I'm more committed than ever. So I don't know, guys. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm right. Comment below if you remember any of that. If you think I'm crazy, tell me as such. I want to know if I'm wrong. It's all about the debate. I love it. All right. Enjoy your weekend, guys. Take it easy and enjoy the ride. All right. I'll see you next week. Thanks.